welcome to this week's bonus materials for Westeros.org recap and information about episode 6, The Old Gods and the New.
So let's discuss the Kings Beyond the Wall. Mance Rayder, we keep hearing that he's this King Beyond the Wall, and we don't really have any background for people who've not read the books as to what this means. And obviously it sounds, he is an acknowledged sort of king by all the wildlings. They follow him as a war leader. The free folk, as they call themselves, are very anarchic. They don't tend to play well with one another. They have this very individual culture. So it's very rare for them to have someone strong enough who can unify them. There's been many kings beyond the wall over thousands of years, ever since the wall was raised. You've had the brothers Gendel and Gorn. You've had the Horned Lord. You had Jormungand. Mance is the latest in a long line of them. And he himself started as a wildling. He was essentially an orphan, a child, a wildling orphan that the Night's Watch ended up picking up on arranging, and they brought him back. So his name, Raider, that's not a house name, that's just a name they've sort of given him as a last name because his family were, wildling raiders. So he was raised in the Watch, but there's this sense that his wildling blood always called to him. The discipline of the Watch never quite sat well with him. And things happen, we won't go into too much detail, could be kind of potentially spoilerish, that lead him to desert the Watch, to go back to his people, and to eventually win his way to becoming the King Beyond the Wall, acknowledged by all of them. It'll be very interesting to see when we meet him, presumably next season. He's a fascinating character.
For the highs and lows, well, let's start with the highs this one, because this episode really starts on a very high note. It is a brilliant opening, and once again we're seeing that they're handling the Ironborn storyline quite well so far, and I think that Alfie Allen's acting as Theon Greyjoy is just excellent. There's a lot of compression going on. Roderick Hessel is not killed this early on in the books, but the way it is done and the way we see Theon shoved into having to be much harsher than he actually wants to be. He thinks that he's quite naive. He thinks that he can just take Winterfell and people will accept that, and the other Ironborn will respect him, and that'll be it. And then he realizes that no, people are going to be insulting towards me, and the other Ironborn are going to expect me to deal harshly with them. I'm going to have to prove myself even further. I'm going to have to prove myself with bloodshed, and I'm going to then try and do the proper thing that, Ned Stark taught me. I'm going to execute this man myself, and my God, what a bloody mess it turns into. It's horrifying, and it is really captures the essence of Theon's struggle, I think. I'd also have to give props to Peter Dinklage's acting during the riot scene, in particular when he gets in and confronts Joffrey. That's brilliant. Finally seeing Tyrion being more than just sort of glib and amused, and he's really getting angry and really showing Joffrey that, this is serious. It's a bit odd, perhaps, that they decided to leave out Lena Headey from this scene, since this is one of the times where Cersei actually realizes that Tyrion is right and Joffrey is behaving like a complete idiot. Other than the riot and the opening of the episode, unfortunately it is suffering from a lot of problems. We have another problematic scene between Robb and Talisa, which feels, again, like it doesn't belong in the story at all. Like something that George could never have written. And then there are several instances of what we felt were very cheap drama. There's a scene where Arya and Tywin are joined by Littlefinger, and it's supposed to evoke this, oh no, is he going to recognize her? And it doesn't go anywhere, and it feels quite cheap. And then it continues with Arya's confrontation with Amory Lorch, and suddenly she has to get Jack in to make a hurried kill, and Amory Lorch is just on his way into Tywin, where a poison dart gets him in the neck and he falls flat on his face. It doesn't resonate at all with how things are working for Arya in Harrenhal in the novels, and it just felt very cheap. And similarly, you have a great start to the Jon and Ygritte scene, but then they feel like they have to spice it up with Ygritte running off and taking Jon off alone into the night and beyond the wall. Why? And, well, the less said about the Finnish and Karth, the better. Dragon thefts? Well, that's it for the highs and lows for this time.
And that's it for our discussion of The Old Gods and the New. And please join us next week when we watch what we're told by Nikolai Coster-Waldau is an episode that features perhaps the best scene he's ever done in anything, A Man Without Honor.